Alright, so hopefully this thing is working. Okay, so we're live. Hopefully you guys can see that cherry blossom behind me. It's a pretty nice little tree. So today I'm going to talk about the first property that I ever bought, and kind of like the lessons that I learned because of that first property. So I bought it in Montgomery, Alabama. I bought this house for $30,000, and it was a mess. It was a cat lady house, so there was carpet in the house, but we pulled all the carpet up and found out that it had what could potentially be really nice hardwood floors, but they were horribly cat stained with, like, you know, cat piss and really bad stains everywhere. So anyway, I bought this house for $30,000 and did an inspection, but I didn't use a very good inspector, as you'll sort of find out later. The first problem that I had in this house was there was a bonus room, like in the back, an add-on room, and there was some trash in the middle of the floor that kind of didn't make sense while it was there. And so once the house was bought, and I already had signed for it, and I moved that trash away in the middle of the bonus room, I noticed that the trash was put there for a reason. It was to cover up a problem. There was actually a huge bump in the floor. The floor was actually raised up into the air, almost 2 feet high. Something was pushing, you know, like the ground up in the middle of the living room. Or it was kind of like a living room, but a bonus room. And I didn't know what it was. So, like, I was thinking, oh my gosh, like, what in the world is going on, you know, with this room? Like, why is it pushed up like that? And I didn't know a lot about, at this time, I mean, this is my first house I'd ever bought. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't really know a lot about real estate or getting contractors. So I kept going out to different contractors and getting bids for how to fix it. And people were saying, you know, $7,000, $8,000, $15,000. People were giving me crazy bids. Finally, one guy came along after like 2 weeks of doing this, and he just pulled up the carpet, took a sledgehammer, smashed the concrete, pulled it all away, found a root, and he said, like, oh, like, you know, I'll charge you, I think it was like $1,000. $1,000, take this root out, re-pour the concrete here, and, you know, we'll be fine. So that sort of crisis was averted, but that was pretty scary. I had many, many sleepless nights. Another problem I had on this house was the hardwood floors. They needed to be redone, and I didn't really know what I was doing, so I got a couple of bids. All the bids are really high. I went with the lowest one I could find, which was $2,000. It was more than $2,000 to redo the hardwood floors. So I'm kind of like, well, I guess that's what it costs to redo a hardwood floor. So they redid the floors, and once it was done, and again, this is a house that cost me $30,000 to buy, and it's going to rent for $750 a month. When the hardwood floors were done, I mean, they looked like something that belonged in, like, the governor's mansion. I mean, it was way too shiny and beautiful. And I really ended up overpaying, and I really overdid it, because the tenants that moved in, I mean, they were smokers. I mean, they're the kind of people that probably were like changing their motorcycles oil in the living room. So, I mean, not necessary. I really overdid it. You know, come to find out, on future houses, you know, I found guys that would redo hardwood floors like that for a couple $100. You know, I just way overpaid. Kind of the last big surprise that happened on this house, once I got everything fixed on this house, and it sat vacant for a little while because of how long it took me to get things fixed, you know, just kind of a problem with being a beginner. Tenants moved in, and they went to turn on, you know, like the water for something, like in the kitchen, and the water didn't really come in. It didn't come out of the faucet, but it started running out into the front lawn. And so they called me up, and they're like, what's going on? You know, the water's not working. It's running out to the front lawn. So I called up my plumber. He came and checked the house, and he called me up, and he's like, sorry to tell you, but somebody came and stole all the copper plumbing from out under the house. And that was about I believe, more than $2,000 to replace all the plumbing. It didn't get replaced with copper, it got replaced with something else. But to fix that, what got stolen with something other than copper, more than $2,000. So lots of unforeseen problems, and there were other problems that I had too on this first house, and a lot of sleepless nights. And my wife asked me after all this, she's like, well, I guess we're done with trying to do this real estate thing. That was pretty scary. And I said, what are you talking about? I want to go out and buy 2 more houses right now. I want to keep going. And I never looked back. So I guess the message I want to get out to you is, you have to sort of push through the fear, and you have to understand that stuff like things I described are going to happen. You're going to use your intuition, use the resources you have. Hopefully you have a mentor. Use everything at your disposal. Get through these problems, tackle them, and move forward. And I bought a second house and a third house actually on the same day, a few weeks later, and both of those were much better investments that went much, much smoother. And then I went from 3 houses to 20 a few years later, and I haven't looked back, and I'm going to keep going. It's all about powering through the fear. I recently did a Bigger Pockets podcast, and Brandon Turner always asks at the end of the podcast, I can't remember the exact question that he asks, but he's kind of like, what separates the people that give up from the people that persevere in real estate? And my answer was, you have to have the determination to push through the fear. You have to, when these tough things come up, you got to push through them and get it done, and you can't just give up. And so that's sort of what I would want to say to everybody today. So I want to show everybody kind of, what's behind me here. I'm in Seoul, Korea, and I think there's a lot of nice little cherry blossoms behind me. There's like a bunch more. I don't know how well you can see it. Might even want to do a little camera flip. How do I do a camera flip without like screwing this up? I say Seoul, Korea. I'm like an hour outside of Seoul. It's kind of nice here, Cherry blossoms are in bloom right now. It's pretty. Just lasts for a few weeks. All right. So anyway, go to my website, richonmoney.com. Go to the real estate tab, and there's a complete guide to real estate investing. Read that. There's a lot of really good resources there for tackling. It might be your first investment property, or it might just be the first time that you've sort of done it, in an informed way, kind of, with a goal in mind and sort of having all the right resources. But learn everything you can, set a goal, and then tackle it. All right, Rich on Money, out.